All right. Welcome, everybody. This is the Beaufort Regional Chamber's candidate town hall with Representative Joe Cunningham. It's Wednesday, October the 14th. Representative Cunningham, we're really glad to have you with us. A reminder for everybody on the line, this call is being recorded and will be posted online. We do have some members of the media on the call and maybe a few others expected as well. So we want to make this a fairly open flow opportunity, but first let me introduce our sitting representative for South Carolina's 1st District, Joe Cunningham. He's an attorney and with a marine science background as well. He serves on the Veterans Affairs Committee and on the Natural Resources Committee in the U.S. He's a West Ashley resident and a father, and he is in his 1st term seeking re-election this November. Representative Cunningham, thanks for being with us. Could you open just by telling us a little bit more about yourself, why you're seeking re-election, and some of your issues in this campaign cycle?
Yeah, of course, Ian. Thanks again for having me. I wish we could do this in person today, but we understand the circumstances command this type of forum, and I just want to commend the Beaufort Regional Chamber for putting safety first. And I got to tell you, it's been the honor of my lifetime to represent South Carolina's Low Country in Congress. And right now, I'm back in Charleston, and we're waiting to hear if congressional leaders can come together for a second round of COVID-19 relief. I know that's at the forefront of everyone's mind, and that's been kind of dominating for the last 6 or 7 months or so, especially here in the Low Countries. We're trying to get things back on track. I mean, this has been the most significant public health and economic crisis that our country has faced in generations. And I'm proud to be working with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to respond to this, since the crisis began. The CARES Act, which was signed into law by the president, that delivered immediate relief to working families, struggling small businesses, and unemployed Americans and healthcare workers and those people on the front lines. CARES Act was by no means perfect, but it helped provide relief to the folks who needed it most. And I feel like the time is long overdue for us to do the same thing again. And I share probably the same frustration as many of you all have on seeing the level of partisanship that we're seeing on both sides. And so it's clear we need to have a compromise and if we're going to get anything done. And that's why, I joined the bipartisan group, the Problem Solvers Caucus, 25 Dems, 25 Republicans, to introduce the bipartisan framework designed to kind of kickstart those relief negotiations. And I think that framework was by and large successful in bringing folks back to the table. And in fact, President Trump and several Senate Republicans commended the framework. So that being said, I'm going to continue pushing bipartisanship to bring more aid for state and local governments whose budgets have been just exhausted by this, and include more funds for testing and contact tracing. I understand how difficult this time is for South Carolina small businesses and entrepreneurs, many of whom have poured their heart and soul and entire livelihoods into their ventures, only to be shut down by a virus they had no control over. So I'll speak briefly about the Paycheck Protection Program, which is a pivotal part of the CARES Act that helped many of the businesses keep the lights on and paychecks in their employees' pockets. But there needs to be another round of that in order for small businesses to survive. So that's why I support providing them with a second PPP loan and allowing them to spend those funds on protective equipment and testing expenses. But also recognize that there's been some shortfalls within the program, like they haven't been as helpful to the commercial real estate market. That's why I support legislation that would establish a lending facility to help the commercial real estate industry stay afloat, avoid foreclosure, keep their employees on staff, and emerge intact on the other side of this crisis. So, those are some of the things that we've been working on. I've in the last 2 years, I've been the Low Countries representative. I've created a reputation for myself as a friend of business and enterprise, and someone willing to work across the aisle, get things done. So I was able to earn support of traditionally conservative groups like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And so, look forward to continuing that work in Congress and look forward to this discussion here today, though. And I appreciate you having me on again, Ian.
Thank you. And, I want to go first to one of the of mind issues for everybody in the Beaufort region. It's made headlines quite a bit over the past few weeks. The future of Marine Corps Recruiting Depot Paris Island. Obviously, national defense is a huge part of our economy in this region. It's about $2.4 billion, 19,000 direct jobs supported. It's big in Charleston as well. Could you talk a little bit about your perception of the future for the recruiting depot and how you would work to make sure that the future national defense goals of the country are met on Paris Island?
Yeah, of course. And, Paris Island's the crown jewel of our military installations. And it's actually one of the first trips I took as a elected representative, going down there and taking a tour of the island and the base and seeing what their needs are. And they told me that, they'd like to update their firing range and some other facilities. And so I was proud to help secure over $37 million to help them do exactly that. And the NDAA, commonly referred to as the military's budget, I was proud to help get that passed as well and stand with every other member of South Carolina's delegation, including Senator Scott, Senator Graham, everyone else, except with the exception of Tom Rice. And the recent military budget included the biggest pay raise for our men and women in uniform in more than a decade, and actually afforded more resources to military installations like Paris Island. And I know there's been a lot of chatter back and forth, and a lot of some people are trying to use this as a political football, essentially, and are criticizing my vote, which was the same vote that Tim Scott, Lindsey Graham, and like I said, everyone else in South Carolina's delegation took. And there's been just a lot of mistruths about Paris Island. And so I'm happy to kind of clear some of these things up right now. The fact is, I've spoken to the Commandant of the Marine Corps, and there are no plans to close it down. And when we talk about gender integration, which was a part of the military budget, again, the budget and the plan that everyone else in South Carolina's delegation supported, except for Tom Rice, the men and women are being trained down there in Paris Island right now. And the hindrance for full gender integration within the next 5 years, may require some more barracks, but that's just going to require some more funds, which is something that we're going to work hard to make sure that they get. We're going to make sure that Paris Island doesn't close and it is not under threat. And again, I think the South Carolina delegation stands united on this front. And this is, there are a lot of things that we can disagree on, but this is one, making sure we preserve Paris Island, making sure they have the resources they need. And look, that's what I've been doing my first 2 years, and helping them secure more than $37 million in additional funding to address their firing range and other facilities. So, you're seeing a lot of things coming up on the airways and a lot of attacks. Those come off as desperate and from someone who's fallen behind in an election. But the fact is, we've done a lot for Paris Island. Look forward to continuing to make sure that they have the resources they need because of the economic, not only the economic impact that they have on the Low Country, but also just on our military readiness. They're extremely vital to our military, the Marine Corps, and we're going to make sure that we do everything we can to make sure they have the resources that they need day in and day out.
When we talk about infrastructure funding, we traditionally talk about roads, bridges, ports, airports. Certainly there are some major needs in the 1st Congressional District on that front. Increasingly, people are also thinking about flooding infrastructure and the overall sustainability of our built environment and the investments that may be needed to preserve that. Do you think there's a bigger role for the federal government to play in flooding infrastructure? And if so, what possible mechanism might lead to some additional federal investment in the kinds of projects that our local governments here are having to make around flooding?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the climate is changing, and we're seeing more king tides. We're the Low Country, so we're experiencing this firsthand. We're on the ground, and it's something we see every day here in Charleston, all the way down to Hilton Head. And climate is changing. I think first and foremost, you need someone who accepts the science behind it, not somebody who's on the fringe and just denies the existence of climate change and the science behind it, and the fact that mankind is having an impact on it. But there, Ian, as we talk about these issues, we need to have both short-term and long-term goals. And the short-term goals deal more, focus on infrastructure needs. Down here in Charleston, we're raising the battery wall down there. We've also got a $22 million infrastructure project underway that's going to alleviate some of the flooding within our medical district. That's why we've introduced legislation to allow facilities to, be a little bit kind of thinking outside the box and give them a little bit more flexibility. We introduced a bill that allows the VA hospital here to basically pool their resources with surrounding property owners to address things like flooding. Because not all times is it related directly to their property, but the situation they're in with surrounding property owners as well. We've passed Defense Roads Enhancement Act, which makes sure that resources are allocated for coastal resiliency and dealing with these changes. But the fact is, we as we look to the long term, we got to recognize that climate's changing. We got to recognize our own impact on it, and start making that transition away from dirty energy resources to clean, renewable ones. And that's not going to happen overnight, but it has to have buy-in from the business community. It has to have all of us coming together and making the changes we can in order to offset the impacts we're seeing with climate change and intensifying storms and hurricanes and rising sea level. Just probably about a month ago, I had a Republican colleague of mine, Congressman Jamie Comer, in town, and we took him around the harbor here, and it was during a king tide, so you got to see up close and personal the effects that we're seeing, sunny day flooding, these types of things that are happening more and more frequently. And for those not on the coast, for those who may be landlocked, like my colleague Jamie, that may not be, like I said, up close and personal. And so I was glad he was here and he's got to experience this on a king tide and see the actual impacts of this. And so that's, again, I think educating people on the reality of the situation and then, help craft bipartisan legislation that will actually hopefully address this and reverse this trend.
I'd like to open it up to questions from some of the folks on the phone. If you have one, you can either put that in the chat or better yet, just unmute yourself and jump in. Sean, please go ahead. I see your hand up.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you, Beaufort Chamber of Commerce, for putting this on, and Republican Cunningham, very nice to see you again. Was able to get the pleasure of meeting you in person the last time the Chamber put together their State of the Union or State of the Region, and hopefully we'll get to do that again next year in person. But I wanted to ask you a question in regards to your stance on masks. Beaufort County just yesterday voted to not renew the mask regulations for Beaufort County. I know the city of Beaufort, town of Bluffton, and Hilton Head are still discussing those, but I would like to get your input on what your thoughts are on mask regulations.
Yeah, Sean, great question. Thanks for joining here today. Look, I think we need to follow the science and follow the facts as we navigate this pandemic. And months ago, we were calling for the governor to issue a statewide mask mandate when our numbers were extremely high. I'm glad to see that things are slowly decreasing. And I think that, a lot of folks in the medical community can tie those results and that empirical data to local mask mandates, social distancing, washing your hands. I mean, these are things that we've been talking about since the beginning of this. And I think, there's a level of personal responsibility we all have to demonstrate. We all have to exhibit. And, each local municipality, each local town and county, obviously has the ability to issue these mandates, and even in light of the governor not issuing a statewide one. So, I think there are metrics being followed as to the infection rate on when things are opening back up. And look, I want to get things open back up as quickly as possible, as everyone else does. I mean, we're seeing businesses slowly come back. South Carolina's economy was booming before this hit, and we want to get that back on track. But I think it's imperative that we follow the facts, follow the science, and continue to look at empirical data on what the transmission rate is, what the infection rate is, in each respective municipality and do everything we can. Obviously the ordinances and the laws are the baseline. Each and every one of us, whether or not there's a mask mandate in place, can continue to exhibit that personal responsibility in wearing a mask to other people, wearing a mask when you go out. I know that even in counties or towns where there wasn't a mask mandate, stores and businesses have put those in place for out of safety and concern for their own employees and or other patrons. So again, we all have to exhibit that personal sense of responsibility. But I do commend those towns, those counties that have put those mask mandates in place to make sure we can get to the other side of this. But I'm wanting to get there as quickly as everyone else is on this call and everyone else listening. But again, it's got to be led by science. It's got to be led by facts, and it can't be led by politics, in my opinion.
Thank you. And I'll note that while Beaufort County fell one vote short of renewing their mask mandate on Monday night, the city of Beaufort did pass an extension of their mask mandate last night. And it was noted by several members of council in the comments how much local business mostly wanted to see the mask mandate extended because they don't really want to be in the enforcement business, and they do want to keep their employees safe.
Yeah.
Sticking on COVID for a minute, one of the issues that the Chamber's been talking about with our state delegation is liability protection for businesses who have, in good faith, taken every step they could and followed the best evidence they could to protect both their employees and their customers. We closed out our 2020 session without a COVID liability protection bill in South Carolina. If there were a federal opportunity for such, is that something you would be inclined to support?
Yeah, the bipartisan framework that we put out with the Problem Solvers Caucus, it included some element of that to make sure that some types of protections for businesses that were operating in good faith and doing the best they can. Obviously, the devil's going to be in the details, and I would tell I understand the concern with businesses and wanting to keep their patrons safe and their employees safe. And again, I'd go back to following the facts and following the science and using the best available data that we have right now. And I think that CDC is and DHEC are kind of the gold standard as far as the guidelines and the specifications we need to follow. Look, there's some good actors out there and some bad actors out there. We've probably seen both on the business side. I hear stories about different offices, that discourage the wearing of masks. And I hear, just stories that are on their opposite end. But by and large, most businesses are wanting to do the right thing. They are wanting to keep their employees safe and their patrons safe. And, I think that I would tell businesses right now that follow the guidelines of CDC, DHEC, and other control, other agencies. And that's the best we can do with the science we have. As far as what makes it into the eventual package, I think we'll have to hear from the Senate and also the administration on whether or not they want something like that in. But I don't want to let the perfect be the enemy of good here in this. And I recognize that we need some kind of relief. We need more PPP loans. We need more stimulus money for local municipalities who, like I said, whose coffers have been drained through this. So there's going to be a lot of moving parts in this. We'll continue to watch it and keep everyone updated. But during these times right now, I think we have to follow those agencies' guidelines and recommendations to the best of our ability.
Welcome other questions.
Good afternoon, Congressman.
Hey, Ben, how you doing?
Real good. How are you?
Excellent, man.
Glad to hear it. I was just hoping you could speak to our and our allies' relationship with China right now. It seems kind of like we've got an emerging superpower that doesn't necessarily have to play by the rules that most other developed countries do. Just what are we looking at in the next few years of dealing with China and their expanding sphere of influence?
No, it's a great question, and it's a big concern for our country as China's emerging and involved in a lot of reprehensible behavior, and it's important. They're held accountable. I was over in the Situation Room a few weeks ago, talking with the administration on this, along with a couple of my Democratic colleagues and a few of my Republican colleagues. And again, this isn't something that's partisan. We have to realize that the threats from China are real, and they're continuing to grow, and at the expense of small businesses in the U.S. and other businesses across the country. We don't need to relitigate all of the bad practices that they engage in, but as we tackle these issues and hold them accountable, I've always felt that it can best be done with a unified force and a unified voice. And these relationships with other countries, I feel, are pivotal in holding countries like China accountable for the damage that they do. We're seeing attacks on our own democracy, on our own election system. I've seen the threats that are emerging from both China, Russia, and other countries as well. And we have to, there's a difference between Russia and China, and as China's impact and their footprint is continuing to grow, that is a longer term problem. But I feel like we need a unified support with our allies and be working with them to hold them accountable, as opposed to just going one-on-one with them. I think it's going to be a hell of a lot more effective in that particular manner. I know the president imposed tariffs on this, and again, I would feel a lot more comfortable and confident if this was a unified effort with other countries. I think reestablishing those relationships with our allies and holding them accountable is kind of the best path forward as it relates to them.
I saw Colonel Parker's hand. You want to jump in, sir?
Yeah. Thank you, Congressman. First of all, your visit to Parris Island, said a lot about what you wanted to do over your term, and you made a big impact on Parris Island, and your recent defense of Parris Island, I think, was timely. I think it also opens up the potential when we talk about the Marine Corps in this area, and we talk about the cybersecurity initiative that we've begun here over the last 10 months with the University of South Carolina Beaufort Technical College of Low Country Business Development, Economic Development, to perhaps reinforce some of the Marine Corps cyberspace capabilities by allowing them to expand their capabilities into the Beaufort area. Such things as an expansion of the Cyberspace Command locate down here, reserve cyber, Marine Corps cyber potential down here, other pieces of the Marine Corps Cyberspace Command that might find a home in this region, much like what has happened up in Augusta at Fort Gordon with the Army, which is a really good model of what can happen in a local area. But I just would appreciate your comments on the potential to expand in our cyber initiative at the South Coast Cyber Center. And I want to tell you that we had a good meeting yesterday, and there's what's happening at the University of South Carolina Beaufort and the Technical College of the Low Country would amaze you about the progress that's been made.
Yeah, of course, Colonel Walker, and thank you for your leadership on this initiative. This is the future, cybersecurity, and we I think we understand how imminent of a threat this is, and going back to Ben's comment on China, we're seeing that the essentially their capabilities increasing, and we have to increase our defense as well as we're moving forward on this. And I think it creates a large opportunity, especially for the Beaufort area down there, because some of the resources are already there and in place. And since you coming back to Parris Island and a lot of the falsehoods that are circulating, I think it's important to remind folks that Mayor Kosling of Beaufort sent out a letter asking for these false and negative attack ads to be taken down. I think that the pushing of false information, and we often see it from foreign actors, but we're also seeing it from people's campaigns now, who are seeking to essentially use our military as a political football or political wedge. And I think that's reprehensible, and I think it's an insult to our men and women in uniform. We have to be looking at ways to create more opportunities, and I think that cybersecurity, that initiative, Colonel Parker, is a great initiative, and one that we can hopefully expand upon. And I want to thank you again for your leadership on that, though.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Peter.
Yeah, if I can tie it a little bit together. Joe, I live in Mount Pleasant, born and raised in Beaufort, belong to both chambers, drive up and down 17 all the time. And it's just a matter of time before the Ashepoo River covers 17 one of these days on a king tide. When you look at what we're talking about from foreign influence, this isn't as simple as just building the battery, because that water is going to make its way up Shem Creek and up the Ashepoo River. You can't just build bigger walls on the beach. What can we do at a federal level to combat some of the bad actors outside of the United States to slow down? We can defend, we can build bigger walls. New York at some point is going to be surrounded by a wall. What can we do to get China and India and some of these other countries? Because I think it just recently, Beaufort County was voted as the #1 most vulnerable county in the country to climate change and sea level rising. So it's going to be our back door.
No, Peter, that's a great question. And, this is, I would call, you have what we can do, and you have what we can hold other bad actors to, other countries to. And those aren't mutually exclusive. And so we'll talk about the bad actors part, the foreign actors, foreign countries, similar to the way we hold them accountable in other realms, whether it be trade agreements or sanctions. Getting everybody to the table and realizing that you can participate in and reap the benefits of a global economy, but so long as you're not polluting our rivers and our air, just like is with domestic actors, through a series of or a combination of carrots and sticks. And the sticks we have are those trade agreements. The sticks we have are those sanctions and our relationships, and building that, reestablishing those relationships with other countries who share those same values as we do, and recognize that this effect is real. Now, I will say, though, on the other hand, and some people will try to use this as a scapegoat for not cleaning up our own backyard. I would push back against that and say that even if China, Russia, or other people may not be rising to meet the moment per se with climate change, should not negate the fact that we have to do what we can in our own backyard. And America has always been a leader in the world, and America is always led by innovation, and we've been on the right side of these issues, and I don't think that should change. I don't think that we can simply just say, well, China's not going to do it, or India's not going to do it, so why should we bother? And we talk about these initiatives. I think we should see that as an opportunity. And Paris Island has led the way, quite frankly. Even though they're susceptible to climate change, they produce more solar energy on Paris Island than they consume, and they export it back. And I think that's a good indication of the energy that can be harnessed from the power of solar. And as we develop more with wind and other renewable energy resources, I think those should be business sectors that should expand upon. And we're seeing it with Volvo here in our backyard, expanding, into making only electrical cars. So, this can be an opportunity, and we can seize the moment, and we can lead by example, and we can also hold other countries accountable through those series of sticks, through trade agreements and sanctions and so forth.
Thanks, Joe.
We have hit the half-hour mark. I was hoping we could close out with one final question. In these past few months, we've punted on a second round of business relief for COVID, and are jeopardizing what's already a shaky recovery. I think we're on a few-month extension on a federal budget, a continuing resolution there. Is there reason for hope that post-election, regardless of the outcome in this race, that there will be an opportunity for the country to come back together and begin addressing some of the basic problems that and baseline challenges
Yeah.
that have been unable to be cleared in the past few months.
Yeah, Ian, I remain cautiously optimistic that we can, and I do think that we are on the verge of getting an infrastructure deal in place before COVID hit. That was one of the big priorities, I think, of the president and Congress. And so we've got to get through this pandemic first. I hope that we can provide some relief to businesses before the election. That's something we're pushing for, to get people back to the table. But when we get through this, obviously we will still have our share of challenges that we need to address: infrastructure, getting our budget balanced, and getting our debt under control. These are a lot of things that concern a lot of people in this country. So we're going to continue to work tirelessly. But the only way I think that we can meet those challenges is to bring people together, Ian, and not demonize the other side, not ridicule other people, but bringing Democrats and Republicans together. That's what I've been set on doing. So I've been ranked the 4th most bipartisan member out of 435. That's why I've been working tirelessly within the Problem Solvers Caucus, and something I look forward to doing through the next term as well. So, but I would leave you with that, and thank you again for having me on. Thank you again for giving me this opportunity, and let you know that I appreciate all of your work. Recognize the challenges y'all are facing at this moment, and should you need anything at all, I want you to don't hesitate to reach out to my office at any time.
Well, thank you again for joining us. And I will remind everybody who's watching or who's watching this recording, you can also view the Beaufort Regional Chamber's Town Hall with Nancy Mace, which was recorded last week, on the YouTube page. And tonight, October 14th, is the candidate forum for mayoral and city council candidates for the city of Beaufort that is co-hosted by the Beaufort Regional Chamber and USCB. Watch that on the county channel online, on the Chamber's Facebook page, or come in person and socially distance on the lawn outside at USCB if you want to watch that safely with some of your friends, so you can come do that in person if you choose. All right, everybody, thank you. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and we'll talk soon.